and food vlog. It's an ASMR podcast now.
Cinematic. No. Fucking, who are we? We're
gaming podcast.
we're who?
We're gaming podcast.
Gaming podcast.
We're gaming podcast.
Gaming outcasts.
Hosted in Gaming, Austria.
Austria. We're from Austria. All right,
Geron's fucking wasted over here.
Yeah, I'm completely hosed right now. Was that the word? That's what that word means, right?
Could be.
Well, let's just say it does mean that and nothing else. Look, this is Memory Leak. We talk about TV, games, politics now, unfortunately.
Yeah, we have to take the mantle now that Destiny's been canceled.
Yeah, oops.
Don't look it up.
And then Benjamin is playing Donkey Kong Land 2 on
This
his.
is 3.
This is 3?
This is
it's already
3,
out?
brother. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
There's no way it's already out.
This is it, dude.
Hit the. Oh, yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, that's it. That just proved it right there.
I really hope we get Donkey Kong 94 on this fucking shit.
Yeah, before
it
the
should have
end
been
of the year.
before with the land games.
Look, there's probably a lot of licensing they have to do when they have the Rareware logo all over everything and shit like that.
With 94? That wasn't
No,
even rare.
no, not 94. They wanted to prioritize getting these out.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Just to get that
Just
out
from
of
a
the way.
timing
And then 94
perspective.
will come out last, especially because it's got Mario in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They wanted to focus on Donkey Kong. But look, I'm Geron, Dixie Kong Geron. No, that was bad.
Interesting.
I can pick her because she was on the screen.
You can go again.
I'm a Geron, Dr. fucking Frankenrule. What the fuck is he called in this game?
He's a scientist.
Yeah.
This is the scientist one, right?
Right.
What was he in 2? He was just the
He
captain.
was a pirate.
Captain K. Rule?
Captain K. Rule, yeah.
Yeah. Instead of King. And this one is Doctor? No,
Yeah.
it's not Doctor.
It's Doctor. It is Doctor.
Dr. Cruel?
Dr. K. Rulenstein, I think.
It could be that.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
I'm Benjamin Megalopolis to Benjamin.
Oh, yeah, he just finished watching his favorite movie. Baron K. Rulenstein. That's what
Baron K. Rule.
Baron K. Rulenstein, yeah. Okay. No, look at this DeviantArt art. Oh, that completely misses the character.
That's so disgusting to me.
This is going to be one of those episodes, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not a good start.
Yeah.
It's not a good start. Holy shit.
Oh, look at that. We've got the Pokemon trading card game Battle Academy box just waiting here. Everything.
Yeah. Ever since Geron begged and pleaded to play the Pokemon
That's
card
not
game
really what happened.
on
at
his
all.
fucking knees,
That literally
crying,
None of that happened.
sobbing, grabbing my pant leg. Please, I really just want to play Pokemon.
No, that never fucking happened.
No. But our kind producer / editor, Pedrock,
Mm-hmm.
brought over his Battle Academy thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to play it with curated decks. It's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm. At some point, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what are we talking about today?
Guess we're going to talk about the PlayStation 30th anniversary. Wow. 30 years. PlayStation. Whoa.
It's a little bit, it's almost as old as we are.
Yeah, I mean, PS4 came out in, not PS4. PS1 came out in 1994, which feels really early, and that's before a lot of people we know were, like, cognizant. Don't be a pussy. Just play the game. I quit this shit. Yeah, like 3D games got started when we were really fucking young, which is crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
It feels
I
like
mean,
we were
there
playing
were
Super Nintendo
some-
for our entire lives.
But there were some 3D games on Super Nintendo.
Yeah, but I mean 3D
Star
as
Fox
like a
counts.
huh?
Star Fox counts.
Sure, but I mean like as a big concept. And I think Star Fox came out after the PlayStation? Or
It
no.
might have.
Did it come out in 93? I think it came out in 93, so no.
Star Fox 2 did.
Hey Siri, when did Star Fox release? Yeah, okay.
So definitely before.
It's definitely before, yeah.
By a solid couple of years.
Yeah.
But Donkey Kong Country and Super Mario RPG using Mode 7
But Mode 7 is not 3D.
No, I know it's faking it till it makes it.
And anyway, neither of those games use fucking Mode 7 anyway.
It's true.
Donkey Kong Country and Mario RPG both use
I'm just thinking
pre-rendered
Super
graphics.
Super Effects chip.
Doesn't use the Super Effects chip either.
What's the special chip?
That's the chip that Star Fox used, but Donkey Kong Country did not use that.
Maybe Donkey Kong didn't, but Mario RPG
Mario
did.
RPG absolutely did not. 100% did not use that chip at all.
We need our own Joe Rogan Jamie to fucking fact check shit.
There's nothing
poorly.
to fact check. I've got the information. I've got the data. Stunt Race FX used the Super FX chip. It was a racing game. It's fun, but the frame rate is so low. That's very hard to go back to. You have it on the Switch right here, actually.
Yeah. Here it is. It's one of only 7 Super Nintendo games released outside Japan to use the Nintendo SA1 chip.
SA1, which is not the
thinking
Super FX chip.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Super Accelerator 1.
Yeah. It just makes game run good.
It's just a stronger fucking chip.
Yeah.
It's interesting how much technology was on the individual games. Kind of an interesting idea.
Having the okay, so I
Like,
guess this isn't about PlayStation anymore.
It lets shit scale better over the course of a console's life.
On the NES, every console that had cartridge-based games outside of the Switch, obviously, for obvious reasons, I should say, because those are more like SD cards than they are cartridges.
Yeah.
Like even the DS gave you like an IR port with the Pokemon games and shit like that. Those cartridges, despite like they were expensive, but they did expand the capabilities of the machine that they were being put into. So you'd have games that ran just the way they needed to on a system because they had extra chips to help them out on board, which that's a cool thing. The N64 is notoriously difficult to emulate because they didn't really do that so much, but
just the unique architecture.
The system is so weird that you had to do a lot of weird hacky things that kind of only worked on the N64. So to replicate that is really difficult with software. But, so PlayStation.
Back to PlayStation. The Nintendo PlayStation. We got there eventually.
Oh, yeah. The Nintendo PlayStation. That was the PlayStation was originally going to be a Super Nintendo add-on, or was it
was
a Super Nintendo add-on or its own platform that was based on the Super Nintendo and had CD capabilities?
My feeling about it always reminded me of just the way that Genesis evolved.
Yeah.
And like became Sega CD, and like it never really felt like a true generational leap until you get to Saturn.
Until you get to Saturn, and even then, like Saturn obviously was far different from the Genesis, but the Genesis was still getting games when the Saturn was out. Like I was still getting Genesis games while the Saturn was out.
Yeah, but like you had Master System, you had all the like different versions of the Genesis.
Master System wasn't a Genesis. The Master System is like the NES equivalent.
Well, there you go. It shows how much I fucking know. Shows how confusing the Sega branding was in terms of what games could be played on what.
It's not that confusing. Though you could play Master System games with a power base converter on the Genesis.
Oh, they make it like backwards compatible.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Genesis hardware could run it, and then you would
that's what I'm confused by.
Need something to put.
But there were multiple like physical models of the Genesis, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't there like a small one and a big one?
There's the Model 1, which is the big one. There's a Model 2, which is it's like the PS3 actually. It's almost exactly like the PS3.
Okay.
Where there's a big one, there's a kind of slim one, and there's a small one.
Right.
Almost exactly the same way the PS3 handled it. And they all have slightly different hardware on them, so certain games won't work on the old one or the new one, or the sound chip won't work, or it's the most annoying fucking thing.
Yeah.
But the Genesis 2 is basically a safe bet. You get most of the compatibility. The 3 is dangerous, but
so PlayStation.
Look, the PS1 came out, and I kind of, in my head, I feel like I was like cognizant of it releasing, of it being new.
Have I told the story of the PlayStation release from my perspective as a fucking 5-year-old?
I don't think you did.
5-year-old?
I guess it was. I guess we were like 5 when it came here.
Yeah, it was 95.
It was 95 when it came out in the US. Yeah,
and N64 was 96.
1964 was September 9th, September 6th, 1996, I think.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
I don't think we got N64 launch, but we definitely got fucking PlayStation.
Yeah.
So I remember it because we had both Genesis and Super Nintendo. We had a lot of games for him.
Yeah.
And it was fucking. It had to have been in the fall because I was like in school. I had rented the Power Rangers movie Genesis Brawler.
Yeah,
I
like
weekend.
that game.
I remember like enjoying the game.
Like, it's not the greatest beat 'em up ever, but I think it's fun enough.
Yeah. So I played it Friday. I was like, oh fuck yeah, this weekend's gonna rule. Saturday, I wake up and I go to play the Genesis. I'm like, where's the Genesis?
Like, where?
It's not here. It's not plugged in. My family is basically gone. Like my dad's home, but like my mom, my two brothers are gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Like, why? Where is everybody? Like, they don't have weekend activities. What is going on here? I realized they had taken both the Super Nintendo and the Genesis and a vast majority of I think all of the games that we owned at least, and traded it in for PlayStation.
No.
And they came back with a PlayStation, and I was so upset.
Fucking way.
I was so sad. I definitely cried as a fucking 6-year-old. And I was so fucking pissed. I like refused to engage with this.
You don't want to touch this new
shit.
Yeah.
But as soon as they booted it up and like we had fucking Ridge Racer and Jumping Flash.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I got my hands on the demo disc. I was like, this is pretty fucking.
You started
cool.
to understand a little bit, but that wasn't worth losing two.
Yeah, it felt bad. It felt really fucking bad. So that's kind of my launch day memory of PlayStation. So I have strong memories of Ridge Racer. I have strong memories of fucking around on the menu screen, the memory card.
The
memory card screen. Memories of, slapping regular fucking CDs into the PlayStation 1, seeing it play through the TV speakers.
Yeah.
So that was funny. I have good memories. of the PS1.
Yeah.
PS1 had a lot of fucking good games.
Yeah. Like PS1, my exposure to it, I don't remember like the day it came out, but I remember I had friends that just started getting them. And I was exposed to like just PlayStation games, and they were. I could tell that this was new. This is like, oh, these are 3D. I don't think I necessarily had the words for it at the time, but I understood that they were different. But something about it wasn't like I have to have this.
Right.
It was a weird thing because that's a feeling I got with a different system and a different game in particular. But we're not talking about that right now.
No, I would agree though. Like at launch, I would say because they weren't like household names or anything.
Yeah.
They kind of had a little bit of an uphill battle to prove themselves just on raw tech and innovation alone.
Yeah,
which they eventually did, obviously.
Yeah, they clearly did.
It's just interesting that like I think that actually ended up really kind of carrying through the entire PlayStation like life cycle, like the entire history of the company,
history of the system
that became who they were is like pushing tech boundaries specifically.
Yeah,
you even see that with how they frame the PS5 Pro
in specific ways, like the PlayStation was not the most powerful console of its generation necessarily, but it was doing, I think some of the things about it made it the most like powerful tool to make games with.
Right.
Like it couldn't push the same, like it couldn't push the stable textures and polygons that the N64 could. The N64 could do things that the PlayStation couldn't, but audio wise, PS1 blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
Like amount of data that you could fit on a cheaper disc.
Yeah.
Blew the fucking N64 just completely away. The amount of games that were made for that thing completely blasted it. That's what he's gonna look like. Sorry, dude. But I'm kidding.
I would say yeah. I mean, the PlayStation 1 game lineup, gotta be in contention for one of the just best console game lineups. Period.
It was a
crazy density from first party to third party.
Exactly. Like that was the that was like the refuge for developers and publishers that were making things for the Super Nintendo and wanted out of the restrictions that Nintendo had put on them.
Right.
So like Final Fantasy went to PlayStation. A bunch of when
it was competition and like sort of the free market working as designed, Nintendo.
The what's it called? Like the PlayStation had tons and tons and tons of games, and like the weirder, stranger games that you wouldn't get they were less of a risk to make for that machine because one, that console became pretty ubiquitous. Like a lot of houses had them. They were just everywhere. The media format to put the games on was not expensive like a cartridge. And
just for cheap. Like CDs were. I mean, there's a reason why we basically had this big U curve of like everybody going the disc route
and then
coming back to Switch and
cards,
PS
like
Vita,
SD cards or for variants of flash memory, basically.
Yeah.
The I think Nintendo and Sony were both doing some of their best shit at this time, when it came to figuring out what video games were going to be from then on.
Yeah, like the identity of games and also the identity of their companies.
Exactly. Like they had very different ways of going about that generation. It was still even a situation where games that came out on one machine were quite different when they came out on the other. Like maybe quality wise, maybe gameplay wise, any kind of things.
No, I mean even some of the debates we have today about how like, you know, I think if somebody were to describe in layman's terms how they view Sony first party games and how Sony like invests in first party games, they would probably say, you know, AAA production value, high element on story and cinematic feel and approach
nowadays,
and kind of like movie games, right? Which you look back at the PS1, Metal Gear Solid always ranks at the top of people's fucking list. Fixed camera angles, cutscenes, very cinematic experience.
And the thing about that is that Sony wasn't making that game. That game was enabled by what Sony did with the PlayStation, and and Metal Gear Solid 1 specifically kind of established the cinematic tropes that we have for games specifically.
Yeah,
I don't think people like even think that all the way through nowadays. Like they probably don't realize that Metal Gear Solid had sown the seed of, you know, getting The Last of Us the way it is now.
Or even Death Stranding.
Yeah. Like Death Stranding, that's the straight up through
Hideo Kojima, like they announced Death Stranding 2 at a Sony event. All of his fucking tweets about like working on the game, building the game, are him with his fucking PS5 controller. Like they're clearly developing it hand in hand with Sony. So that's carried through all these years later.
Yeah.
Resident Evil and Resident Evil 2, fixed camera angle, take controls again. Like
and trying to the pre-rendered backgrounds, trying to bring the visual fidelity up by using these pre-rendered backgrounds, having cutscenes, voice acting.
Exactly.
They're
Hill,
quote unquote mature games. I mean, if you go back and play them now, they're pretty. They probably feel pretty juvenile. Well, maybe not Silent Hill, but like Resident Evil, the old ones feel a little juvenile in comparison to stuff we have now. But back then, that was it was just pretty wild to get it that way. And again, it wasn't necessarily Sony's first party development doing that kind of stuff. It's just their platform enabled that kind of game. Not to say that the N64 didn't get anything like that, but you weren't getting it on the anywhere near the scale outside of a couple of outliers, like getting Resident Evil 2 on the N64 kind of thing.
Yeah. Tomb Raider.
Yeah, Tomb Raider is a unique case because those games play like dog shit.
Yeah, but it just kind of like this idea of creating games that were like brands and franchises.
Yeah.
Like there were multiple movies made.
Yeah, exactly.
Raider,
that's what I'm saying.
Which is funny.
Like I think Tomb Raider had power beyond its gameplay. And I know there's people that are very good at the game. There's people that understand the way the game plays. But initially, Lara Croft feels like trying to make a puppet move while holding the fucking sticks with your fucking knees or something.
Sure.
But
and obviously Final Fantasy becoming the franchise it is today.
Final Fantasy, like on the Nintendo platforms, was a pretty big thing. They're very narratively focused, especially once you get to like 4, 5, 6.
Right.
They and especially 6 actually, but 7 was clearly the bridge between Final Fantasy then and Final Fantasy now.
Yeah.
Where the character they didn't full step into making the characters look like realistic humans, kind of like the way 8 does.
And again, I think a lot of it came down to like the camera.
I mean,
like
there's the camera
specific
too.
moments, just even in the opening bombing mission, where I think about the way you see Cloud walking towards or away from the camera,
Yeah.
like going in the elevator.
Yeah.
Like it's not just all top down.
Right. It's not all top down. You do get more perspectives, and it does the pre-rendered thing like the other
Yeah.
games have been doing. And like that pre-rendered situation was actually a very PC style, like Myst. The whole game is like that.
Yeah.
Very like there's something kind of mysterious. There was a mystique to it because there weren't like rendered polygons that you could explore. You could only see what you were given, and I think that set up the cinematic framing that a lot of the games kind of benefited from and became memorable because of. Like Nintendo's approach to that kind of thing completely different. There's not really games with pre-rendered backgrounds. There's not really games where they focused on camera and cinematics, though there are games that did do that. Like Ocarina of Time does have those elements in it.
Yeah.
But Ocarina of Time also it's also like you can feel in comparison like it's smaller scale. Like,
Right.
But the stakes are just as high as any other games narratively, but the it's very much game first.
Yeah.
Like cinematics, narrative, technology second.
Yeah, I mean, which goes to what Nintendo always wanted to be about, right?
Right,
And that's
right.
how we know them today. It's like make a game and then fit it within the confines of the hardware.
And then being like that is why the PlayStation was able to make the splash that it did, because I think everybody had gotten used to like the Genesis was all games, or Sega's consoles were all games, Nintendo's consoles were all games, but PlayStation was like, okay, let me back up just a step. Like when you had those CD-based systems, they tried to do the FMV game, which was like, oh, it's like you're playing a movie or playing a TV show. It's like, oh, this is bullshit. No one wants that.
Yeah.
No one actually wanted that. But then you got the PlayStation and they properly integrated game and game and other media
Mhm.
in a way that people were very easily able to consume and enjoy. And I think, like you're saying, I think that carried through just the PlayStation timeline entirely. Other developers, other console manufacturers gravitated toward that style too when it came to making quote unquote mature games. And I don't mean like rated M for mature games. I mean games that are designed for something for more than just
higher thought.
children. Yeah. Like little children, I should
Yeah.
say. Not that video games were only made for those kind of people in the first place, but those kind of people made for that audience in the first place. But you know what I'm saying.
I do.
So do you have, what was your favorite PS1 game, I'll say?
Croc Legend of the Go.
Please tell me the truth. Please do not lie to me.
No, but I do want to mention Croc just because we are finally somehow getting recognition that it existed and they're bringing it back to modern consoles.
Yeah, it's coming out on modern
which is
consoles.
crazy. That's something that I missed about PS1, which I think, weirdly enough, PS1 I think actually had more of. I just repeated myself a lot, but I think PS1 actually had more of those like weird 3D platformers.
That's right. Yeah.
That like were kind of afterthoughts.
That
like,
kind of don't work right.
Yeah, like
but
D-listers.
Yeah.
Like
that,
Jersey Devil comes to mind.
Like you had from one Mario 64, you had like 5 of these kind of weird.
Yeah,
like,
and N64 had them.
things.
Like, Glover, Chameleon
Yeah.
Twist, shit like that.
Chameleon Twist is good.
I'm not saying they're
Glover
bad.
was
I'm
good
not
too.
commenting on like the
The
quality of
quality,
these
you're just
games.
saying that
Just like the recognition,
their
the
tier.
brand, the franchise.
Yeah.
And PS1 had a shit ton of them as well. That like you'd go and you'd rent for like a weekend, and they just cranked out games. Like they had so many games that I just spent a couple days on. What was the other one? Medieval.
Oh yeah, Medieval. Yeah.
Yeah.
Medieval. Just Medieval. It's not stylized.
Isn't it spelled?
No, it's literally just Medieval.
But it's not spelled like the word medieval.
Look it up.
It is stylized. The emphasis
Oh, it's
is on
medieval,
the evil.
but then they emphasize evil, but it's still medieval. Oh my
medieval.
God. Well, look. Actually, before we finish talking about the PlayStation, I do need to mention fighting games.
Yeah, fighting games really
PlayStation
resurged.
Got a lot of fighting games. It didn't get Virtua Fighter because Sega was still in the business on their own hardware, but it got Tekken,
Street Fighter Alpha,
Street Fighter Alpha.
It
got
was PS2, right?
Huh?
Was 3 PS2?
Street Fighter Alpha 3.
No, Street Fighter 3.
Street Fighter 3 got versions on Dreamcast actually because it was on.
It wasn't PS1 though.
It was not PS1.
Yeah.
There's versions of Street Fighter 2 though. There were versions of Marvel vs. Capcom games. There were versions like those aren't very good versions, but they did exist. Battle Arena Toshinden was a launch game. Bushido Blade. There's a lot of fighting games to be had on the PS1 that the N64, despite having a six face buttons on the controller, just did not get a lot of fighting games, which is really frustrating because the hardware was definitely like the controller and everything was built for it, and it got like the best version at the time between the PlayStation and the N64. It got the best versions of like the Mortal Kombat games,
right?
But
Mortal Kombat 4,
like Mortal Kombat
Gold.
4, Mortal Kombat trilogy. It got a Killer Instinct game, but it's just like not the same. It didn't have the same ubiquitous series as fucking like Tekken made the jump. What was that jump forward into 3D fighting games? While Mortal Kombat 4 was kind of reviled for being not so good, even though I like it. I think the game feels good to play. I think it's one of the like most responsive Mortal Kombat games, as much, even though all the characters are pretty homogenized. And it's on PlayStation, but on PlayStation with a lot of those games you get load times. And that's like true. Mortal Kombat Trilogy is fucked on PlayStation because if you try to use Shang Tsung and switch to other characters, you get a loading screen, whereas on the N64 it's instant because it's a cartridge.
Right.
And that was one of the detriments of the disc situation, which is why Nintendo kind of waited on that, the load times.
Yeah.
The load times in some of the games were pretty atrocious. There's a lot of waiting, a lot of watching bars, a lot of things like that. But in the end, clearly people didn't really care that much. They were ready to play it. If they were ready to play a game, they were willing to watch it load. Mm-hmm. Outside of the durability issue of CDs getting scratched and maybe not loading at all.
Right.
But yeah, so back to the question I was brought up. Go ahead.
But I also want to sort of, again, like you talk about fighting games. I want to go back to platformers real quick. Because N64 did have probably the highest quality, being in like Banjo-Kazooie and Super Mario 64 and various others. But what PlayStation might not have had in Mario 64, it made up for in quantity. Let me just fucking read this list. I mean, I still love the original Crash Bandicoot, and Crash 2 and 3 were all on PS1.
Yeah.
Like,
they all came out like a year apart.
Crazy.
You're literally, they were the Donkey Kong Country of the PlayStation. Because they literally played like Donkey Kong Country, but
like,
with a 3D,
like linear 3D.
Linear 3D.
Not open like Mario 64.
Instead of breaking barrels and collecting
they weren't
bananas. Huh?
Straight up, they weren't collectathons.
Yeah, I mean, but they were collecting Wumpa fruit and breaking boxes.
Yeah.
It's like the same shit.
Spyro was the collectathon.
Yeah, Spyro was the 3D collectathon. That was the Mario.
I liked Spyro a lot. I thought Spyro was super creative with the way that they basically, it felt like you were controlling like a four-legged animal.
Yeah.
But so beyond sort of like the main big hitters, you had Ape Escape.
Yeah.
You had Tomba. You had Klonoa. You had Gex. You had Rayman. You had Symphony of the Night. Kind of doesn't really count. It's not really 3D. You had Gex. Did I say Gex?
You said Gex.
Be
specific about Gex, because Gex 2. Gex 1 isn't 3D. Tomba also isn't really 3D.
Right.
Klonoa also is hardly 3D.
Okay.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah. Jumping Flash.
Yeah. First person too.
Pandemonium.
Yeah, that game was one of the launch games for the N-Gage.
Oddworld. Jersey Devil. Bubsy. 3D.
3D. Oh, fucking yeah. It's like, why'd I have to think about that? Yeah, I know.
Man, Jersey Devil isn't even on this list. What's wrong with my brain? Nobody ever remembers Jersey Devil.
No.
Croc is like number 1 on this list.
That's funny.
Anyway. It's just funny.
Croc, speaking of Croc, is also a perfect example of that like refugee situation where the developers of that game wanted to make it a Yoshi game. The developers of that game helped make Star Fox. The developers of that game didn't get to hang out with Nintendo anymore, so they're like, fuck this. Croc is coming out on this other box. And even then, like, the PlayStation also was a place for those other CD-based systems. Their games that weren't popular on the shitty little overexpensive console they came on came over to the PlayStation, like Rayman, like Gex, like all that kind of stuff. Those were originally like 3DO games. They were developed for other platforms, and then they actually got their footing as a, they got their footing as an IP with an audience on the PlayStation because the PlayStation was very accessible and the games were accessible there. And to speak of the quantity of games and all the weird games, more often, like the Nintendo 64 had like you said, it had the good games. It didn't have a ton of games, but the good games were like very good.
Right,
but everyone had them.
They were exceptional.
Yeah, and everyone had them. Like if you had an N64, and they usually held their price or came down.
Yeah, the bench was not deep.
Yeah, but on PlayStation, you had, because of the format and because of how many games there were, you were often in a situation where you could get a bunch of games for like $9.99.
Yeah.
$19.99.
Right.
$14.99. All that kind of shit. So you could get like 4 games on PlayStation for the price of 1 on the N64. And if you didn't have the most money, it just made the most sense to get a PlayStation, get all those, play your CDs on those, and then have somebody like burn you some shit from, if you're in another country or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Finally, going back to your question.
Yeah.
It's a tough question.
Go ahead.
Just to rattle off some games that like personally mean things to me. Jumping Flash was the first game that I really liked and probably beat because it was so short.
Yeah.
There was a demo. I think it was the one of the demo discs that had a specific level in Jumping Flash, and it's like burned into my brain.
Yeah.
It's in the second world. It's like the second level of the second world or something, like a carnival level. But like that will always have a place. It's like part of me.
Yeah.
Part of like how I think about 3D games and like aesthetics in 3D games. Yeah. So that's at least on my honorable mentions. Crash Bandicoot 2 specifically is probably one of them. I would probably have to pick a 3-way tie for me personally of being Crash Bandicoot 2, Spyro 1, and Chrono Cross.
Chrono Cross, interesting.
Chrono Cross is definitely on my personal list.
Another Super Nintendo refugee.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I would never make the argument that like they're the best games on PS1.
Oh, I didn't say best. I just said favorite.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but I think just in terms of like the nostalgia and just like the place that they made themselves available to me in my life at that point and the memories that I have with them.
Yeah.
Those are probably the 3 biggest standouts.
Okay. So.
What about you?
That's real. My answer is Metal Gear Solid.
I mean, that's a great answer.
I think I
didn't really grow up with Metal Gear Solid as much. That was more my brother's game.
Yeah,
I liked watching him play it, but I was like too stupid to play. Well,
that's so. The way I experienced that game was like that. It was my friend's brother would play it, and then he would act like we couldn't play it because we weren't smart enough to do so. I understand why he had that thought, but because of that, the game ended up getting this kind of like air around it,
this mystique.
Where once I did finally get to play it myself, I was like, oh shit, I actually really get it. Yeah. It's not hard. Like it's not like I think I think we could have finished it eventually, but I think that game was doing things.
It would be hard for a like 8 or 9-year-old to grasp.
I don't really think so.
Really?
I think the cutscenes might have caused attention to kind of divert, but I think the game is really made. It's just a 2D game. It's just a Zelda game, top-down Zelda game with not difficult.
I think
puzzles.
There's shit that I wouldn't have just like comprehended because there's a lot in the narrative of like how you need to be thinking about the game and like interacting with it.
Sure.
That I think I was genuinely like too stupid to read between certain lines of like the meta-ness of how the characters talk and like want you to react to things. I would have never figured out Psycho Mantis as a fucking 9-year-old.
Well, they eventually tell you in the game.
I guess that's true. Yeah, as long as you survive long enough.
Yeah, I don't think you're giving yourself or the game enough credit in that particular regard. I think the game isn't really made for people that are good at video games. I think there's ways to play it for people that are good at video games, but I think the game really is made for people that like enjoy video games, but they enjoy being entertained more.
I do forget that like I did beat some hard games.
I think if you beat I beat Ocarina of Time as a fucking 8-year-old.
Yeah,
if you can do that, you can beat Metal Gear Solid as an 8-year-old. I think the real thing about that game is that it makes it feel like you're doing something bigger than you actually are because of the way it contextualizes everything And
I definitely wouldn't have understood like the story.
right.
Being a parable for, just the way modern society treats
And even then, I think that
nukes and war and
right. I don't think you're meant to understand it the first time. I think because of that, coming back to it as an adult also improves the game. It's not one of those things where you come back and you're like, this isn't how I remember. It's like, oh shit.
I really enjoyed playing it on Master
this
Collection.
This is crazy.
Because I had never really played the original Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
I had only played Twin Snakes on GameCube.
Yeah. If you had only played Twin Snakes, it'd be you'd have the experience of getting what was originally presented and how it was presented, and you'd kind of understand where they had to make cuts to, like, the little head bobble thing that they have to do because the mouths don't move and stuff like that, where they had to make cuts to make it work, and then how much kind of like imagination and trust in the player's imagination went into making some of these characters and their interactions and things like that just work. Because
it's almost like, to make a really absurd comparison, it's almost like a Monet, the way a Monet works.
Sure, yeah.
It's like you put the pieces there as much as you can.
Right.
Except it's like a Monet if Monet had to do it because of restrictions and
had to do it because there's literally like you have the little one tub of paint and you have to do
because he was limited in the amount of paint.
Yeah. And like nobody can wear glasses while they're looking at this or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, that game, the game part is very good because it's very simple.
Yeah.
The game doesn't take very long if you skip all the cutscenes. The game takes a few hours. And it does things that carry into the rest of the games, and you can feel the evolution, but the things it does, you can also feel in other games around it.
Right.
And I think coming back to MGS1 specifically, where it's a little bit more grounded, it's like after the first two Metal Gear games, but before it goes crazy with Metal Gear Solid 2, you've got the, you can just see where things were about to go with video games in general. You can see why this was on PlayStation and not N64 and not Sega Saturn,
for sure,
and not on anything else until it was on PC, but I don't think it was on any other console officially until now, unless you count the PS3. But
or like Twin Snakes.
I don't count Twin Snakes. Twin Snakes is a different game.
Sure.
Twin Snakes is different. I'm talking about in its original form. So
yeah.
It's not even like an N-Gage version or something.
Yeah, it never would have been. It was just ported through the PSN.
Yeah. So I think we're good on PS1.
PS2.
PS2.
Best-selling video game console of all time. Still.
PS2 completely fucked up everything.
Just ahead of Switch.
Yeah, just ahead of Switch and DS.
I remember my brothers getting the PS2.
Yeah.
Spending a lot of money waiting. I think that was their first midnight release.
Oh, funny.
What did they have as a launch game? I think they had Time Splitters.
Oh, interesting.
I think that was one of their launch games that we had. I feel like I can't remember it having like a strong launch lineup. The
launch lineup was not particularly wide, but the games that were there were like some of those games are still some of the like more fun games to play on the PS2. Like there was SSX.
Oh yeah, SSX
is fucking wild. That game
felt
really good to play, and I remember when.
Now here's my question about SSX.
Yeah,
that was multi-plat.
No,
it wasn't.
No, the first one was not. The first one.
Only two. Only Tricky.
From Tricky onward, they came out on other consoles. But
okay, all right. So
SSX
it truly was a PS2.
Is a
game.
PS2 like at the SSX franchise is a PS2 thing.
Because I do always associate it in my head. I just couldn't figure out why.
What? Like, if you play SSX Tricky, for example, on anything other than the PS2, the controls are fucked. Because on GameCube, you only have 3 shoulder buttons. On Xbox, you have to use face buttons because they only have 2 shoulder buttons. And it doesn't feel good. On PS2, though, you have the 4 shoulder buttons and you use all of those for grabs. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to work. It runs the best on PS2. It's clearly designed.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on SSX Tricky.
Granted, I have the GameCube version, but...
yeah, I mean, if I had to characterize the way I view PS2...
Yeah.
It would very much be just a true evolution of PS1.
Yeah.
Like to me, SSX Tricky is an evolution of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Right.
All the Final Fantasy games are, evolutions of those 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah, 7, 8, 9. You get
11,
10.
And 12.
Yeah, like 10 is the culmination of a lot of the mechanics from 7, 8, 9.
Dragon Quest 8 evolving from 7. Yeah,
Dragon Quest 8. Just evolving from anything that came before it.
Yeah, I mean 7 was on PS1, but 7 was just like an evolution of 4 through 6.
7's a weird.
So, yeah, 7 is weird.
It's a weird like 7 hour.
You had MGS 2 and 3.
Game. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 are those are what kind of characterize the series. Like if you think of Metal Gear, visually you're thinking of Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. You're not thinking of Metal Gear Solid 1. You're definitely not thinking of 4.
Yeah.
Like visually.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of the stuff that started on the PS1
I definitely
turned
remember my
into
brother getting MGS2.
Yeah, there you go. That came out in 2001, just after 9/11. Oops. Speaking of
9/11.
That was not good. I'm so sorry.
Holy shit!
But
911.
Yeah,
I get it.
The PS2 was it's like it was the Super Nintendo to the original PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
It took everything the original system did and just multiplied it by almost 100 in some cases.
Yeah.
The action games it was getting, like Devil May Cry, fuck yeah, getting fucking
you got fucking
God of War, fuck
Kingdom Hearts,
got Kingdom Heats, yeah, fucking bringing that hot Russian beat.
You got Grand Theft Auto 3,
Grand Theft Auto
1
3,
and 2.
like Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2. People don't even fucking think about that shit. People think when Grand Theft Auto started, they're thinking of GTA 3. They don't even question that they're saying 3 at the end of that. And then we got 2 other games in the GTA like 3 trilogy on the PlayStation 2, and they're all so different. Which actually,
they apparently fixed the trilogy on Steam.
on everything.
I picked it up.
Oh, okay. I do want to see it, but we'll save that for another time.
You got Soul Calibur 2.
Yeah, Soul Calibur 1 came out on the Dreamcast. And the Dreamcast was like already hanging on by a thread, and the PS2 was on the way, about to fucking kill it.
I mean, that's what PS2 is almost known for, is killing
just
the Dreamcast.
Completely destroying.
Which is almost sad because the Dreamcast like was in isolation a very good
console. It had good games. Yeah,
it had good games. The console was cool.
The console was cool. The controller was
a lot of shit
ass,
that was ahead of its time.
Yeah, it had online play. It had everything.
Yeah, it had an Ethernet port.
It had everything that we kind of take for granted now was on Dreamcast, but the PS2 just had more. It was more convenient to get. It had
and Clank.
It was better. It was marketed way better. It had fucking obviously when you're coming off of something like the PlayStation and not the Saturn, you're just going to have an advantage.
Right.
And it had the DVD player. The ability to play DVDs. It was
actually a huge deal.
It was a relatively cheap and very nice DVD player for the time when DVD was starting to become the main format to release movies on. In fact, I think the PS2 was probably the reason why DVD was the format that we jumped to. Not obviously not by itself, but it definitely was a very big contributor to that, because now you had kids with PS2s in their rooms, in the living room and shit like that you just could get DVDs, and you put anything on a disc, it's just more convenient. Like, it's way more convenient than VHS tapes.
Yeah.
You're like, let's get the DVD version. We don't have to rewind. That's all you had to tell people at the time. And beside bonus features and shit like that too. But on top of that, you can play like modern DVDs on a PS2, which is really fucking funny when you do it. Like popping the DVD copy of the Mario movie into a PS2 is funny as shit.
That's pretty funny.
But
did you do that?
Huh?
Have you done that?
I did that. Do
you still have a PS2 plugged in?
I have a PS3 plugged in.
Oh, okay.
I have my PS2, but I have my PS3 plugged in as my Blu-ray player.
Okay.
Which we'll talk about when we get there.
But it can't play 4K Blu-rays, right?
It cannot play 4K Blu-rays, but I don't have a 4K TV.
All right.
I very specifically got a 1080p TV because 4K is kind of not necessary for me yet, especially because I can't see it. Okay, what do
you mean you can't see it?
Like, I can't perceive it from the distance that the couch is from the TV. It's like, what's the point? Once if I get a bigger TV, I'll obviously have to get a 4K. Nah, I don't want those.
Why?
I want an OLED.
That's fair.
If I get another TV, it's an OLED. The OLED's more important to me than anything. But the PS2 had such a nice library of games, but it's very obviously not the most powerful console of its generation, though it's another demonstration of how the most powerful console is never the one that everyone has. The Game Boy, the fucking PlayStation 1, the PS2, doesn't matter. You could get the shittiest version of a game on PS2 and that'll be the one that sells the most. Like RE4, dog shit on PS2. Dog shit.
It's ironic
but it sells the most.
it's also almost an outlier in that way.
Almost, but
Because
of what happens after that.
and 3 through 5
Yeah.
are all like doing of like push the innovation, push the tech, push the hardware.
And it's not that the PS2 didn't do that. It just did it. It did it a year before the other two.
Yeah.
So because of that, the other two just had a year to make the jump, and like Microsoft money and Nintendo like partnerships to boost them tech in certain ways, tech wise, ahead of the PS2. But like I said, it's not like that mattered.
Yeah.
The PS2 had the pressure sensitive buttons on the controller and everything too. The Xbox had that too, but
I always forget about that.
Nah, it's one of the most important things about the PS2. It's why it's
That's a hot take.
Oh no, I'm dead fucking serious. It's what makes Metal Gear Solid feel good. It's what makes Gran Turismo feel good. It's what makes Grand Theft Auto feel good.
Grand Theft Auto, what is the pressure sensitive
the accelerator and everything is on the face buttons, and the face buttons are pressure sensitive, so you have full control over the accelerator because there's no like on the Xbox it's put on the trigger because obviously that makes more sense for a pedal. Yeah. But the stuff is
an analog trigger to me is just way more functional.
He's way more functional, sure, but I give me the triggers and the pressure sensitive face button still now, please.
They'll never do it.
Like this fucking Pro controller. Sorry,
they don't agree with you.
The shape is good. The shape of this is great. I like the way this controller feels.
That controller is very good. The Switch Pro controller is very good.
But no analog triggers.
No analog triggers.
No analog buttons. Everything on this son of a bitch is digital outside of the sticks.
Yeah. Please. I do. It does from the leaks. It seems like maybe they're.
It seems like it. Yeah. My understanding is that they got sued for the analog the analog shoulder buttons on the GameCube. So they were just kind of afraid to do it ever again. Or maybe there was an order that they couldn't do it. What?
Pussies.
Yeah, there's some pussy shit. But just change the way the mechanism works and do it. But I guess they had to respect it because they had that patent on the D-pad for so long and they want to be able to do that kind of shit again.
Yeah. But going back to PlayStation, do you have anything else on the PS2? They started doing more of the... It felt like they were starting to do more of the accessory shit with like the iToy.
iToy,
I mean, the one I said earlier, GunCon.
The GunCon, yeah. We had GunCon on PS1.
Oh, did we?
But the GunCon 2 on the PS2 was still. That's where we got some of the later Time Crisis games and stuff like that, and other games that used it. Not to mention, you could use all the PS1 accessories on the PS2, which is very, very, very convenient. Very convenient.
Yeah.
That shit needs to make. They need to ensure that keeps happening in perpetuity. But the PS2 was great. The PS2 is a wonderful console. You did not have to give the game several blowjobs to get them to work. The games, there's so many games, so many games, so many fucking games.
On PS2?
On PS2.
I don't know if it's just because I didn't engage with them as much. I just I can't think of it as deep of a roster on PS2 compared to like PS1 or...
I think PS2 and PS1 either has just a little bit more games or the PS2 is equal to the PS1. And regardless, you could play all those PS1 games on the PS2 anyway.
It did feel like the first generation that like being multi-platform was a big consideration, and PS2 was largely the one to get it on.
Yeah. A lot of the times. The interesting thing about the PS2, like I was saying earlier, is there's a lot of games that came out on it were the worst version.
But people had it because it was also other things like the DVD player.
Right, exactly. Like you were making a mistake not making a version for the PS2.
Right.
Like Beyond Good and Evil is fucking bad on PS2. I was saying RE4 fucking bad on PS2. I'm sure there's other games that I can't think of right off the top of my head. But at the very least, the controller you got uncompromised controls because like you might have a better version of the game on the GameCube, but because of the disc size.
I forgot. Also, Guitar Hero.
Oh yeah, Guitar Hero happened. All the instrument.
You hear that?
Did something fall? I heard something. No, we'll figure it out. The Guitar Hero games. Like Guitar Hero and all that got to popularity on the PS2, and that was in like 2005. That was really late in that generation, but it happened, and those games were popular for the entirety of the generation right after that, which was cool, I guess.
Amplitude is up there.
Okay,
weirdly enough.
That's cool.
MGS3 is probably my personal favorite. If I had understood Metal Gear Solid 2, it probably would have been Metal Gear Solid 2. I just didn't have Metal Gear Solid 2. 3 was my first Metal Gear Solid game, so it's hard for me to not make 3 my favorite.
I think if I had to choose, I'll probably go with Devil May Cry.
Oh wait,
1.
I'm fucking stupid as shit. Kingdom Hearts.
Oh yeah, duh.
Yeah.
And that game kind of transcends its platform.
Yeah. Kingdom Hearts 1 for me specifically, even though I would say 2 is the better game.
Yeah. Like 2 is a better game at a certain point, but I think 1 I had more fun with.
Yeah.
As a child playing the game.
Right.
Especially because it didn't have the same fun. The intro was a little tedious, but it wasn't Kingdom Hearts 2 intro.
I mean, 1 was just fresh. Yeah. It was a new concept. You didn't know what the fuck you were getting into.
But yeah, my answer is Devil May Cry 1. I think there's no other game like that one.
Yeah.
Fucking not even the later Devil May Cry games or anything like it. It's this weird, like, obviously was going to be Resident Evil, but just wasn't quite it. It turned into something else, and the way it plays, how short it is, it's all so fucking uniquely weird to it. And its existence is why we have shit like why I got to play games like Bayonetta and stuff like that down the line. Right. But I think everybody should give Devil May Cry 1 a try. It'll feel like it's really hard, and then you'll realize.
What do you always say Devil May Cry 1 is? Do you say it's a Metroid game?
It's a Castlevania. It's a 3D Castlevania game. Castlevania. It is absolutely a 3D Castlevania. It's better than the 3D Castlevania games that actually came out on the PS2, like Lament of Innocence and Curse of Darkness. Like Lament of Innocence is
I do want to play Lament of Innocence.
All right. Yeah, I have it on my PS3, so we'd have to figure
I would like to play it at some point.
But and Curse of Darkness is its own unique thing, but they're just not quite it, if you know what I mean. But moving on to PS3. PlayStation 3, strange, sad.
Yeah, PS3 feels like the bridge between old PlayStation and new PlayStation.
Yeah.
Kind of like how FF7 was the bridge between old Final Fantasy and new Final Fantasy.
$599 US.
Yeah, it was the first console that felt like, oh, this is egregious.
Yeah,
this is not a toy anymore.
It's when it started feeling like shit was getting expensive, like obviously expensive. Not like, oh, it's not really expensive by itself, but then when you buy all the shit,
like
it
a
is
hobby either.
Yeah,
and there were hardware problems.
Yeah, I mean they all had hardware problems. Like the PS2 had hardware failures early on. The Xbox 360 had.
I feel like it didn't feel like as big of a deal. It felt like less of an issue with PS2.
Well, on PS2, I watched someone go through multiple PS2s, so
you could just send it in though, right?
You could. Yeah.
I feel like with PS3 and especially with Xbox 360, that shit was like disturbing.
That shit was it was very common. It was like on 360
more common. I felt
on 360 it was like a matter of time. Yeah. It wasn't an if. It was a when.
With 360,
yeah, but with those with the early models,
is I got one secondhand.
Okay.
From like, I don't know, GameStop or something.
Yeah.
Or EB Games at the time.
Whatever, yeah.
And it worked. It's the one I have here, actually.
Oh, that's funny.
It worked for a while, and then I had to bring it to a fucking strange apartment. It was like a Craigslist situation where he's like, I can fix your Xbox for like $20. And I would bring it there with my brother, and it fucking smelled like smoke. There was no furniture in this apartment.
I mean, he's charging $20 for repairs, sketchy. Of course.
The dude had like tattoos all over, but he was nice. And job top, he's like, I'll just like, hit me up in a week, and I'll have it fixed for you. And he fixed it. He did the fucking thing. Great. It was fucking really weird as shit.
Funny. That's really fucking. I'll fix it for you. But yeah, so PS3, the experience I had with PS3 was unique because I was more interested in the Wii at that moment. That was when
everyone was. I feel
like 360 was already out, so we already seen what those kind of games look like. And the Wii came out.
Console example of hardware does not beat games.
Exactly. Yeah, hardware does not beat
the ultimate example.
Something unique and interesting when it came to games. Granted, the PS3 in the end actually beat out the Xbox 360 that generation.
Oh, like
sales wise,
that's kind of funny.
By a little bit, but it's because of other regions.
And probably once they had like the slim model, things like that.
Yeah, like things started coming together for the PS3.
Kind of had different models too.
It did have different models,
like
but I think
the slim 360.
I think one of the things that was a benefit was that the PlayStation 3 had free online play.
Yeah,
and it was fine.
Well, I actually don't think that made a big deal. I'll say it. I don't think it made a big deal.
I think it made a big deal in countries that were not the U.S.
Maybe. Like for what? Fighting games?
Anything.
But like what games were you like it felt like this was the gen they like genuinely committed hard to that single player cinematic shit.
But Call of Duty still came out on everything.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I'm the wrong person to ask.
Like but games like that still were coming.
I think of PS3. I think of MGS4. I think of Last of Us. I think of God of War.
When I think of why PS2
Little Big Planet,
PS3 were really truly successful, like actually, it actually has not so much to do with those and everything to do with countries buying FIFA year after year after year after year.
Was GTA 5 online on PS3?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think it was.
Okay.
I remember talking about it before it came out on a
and Uncharted.
Oh my God.
3 Uncharted games.
I talked about GTA 5 on a fucking podcast before it came out. That's so fucking weird. I didn't even think about that.
What?
That's crazy. When I did the fucking
Did you just memory leak?
Yeah, when I did the fucking the Spawn First shit.
Oh, I forgot about Spawn First.
Oh my God.
You gotta dig up the clip.
It's probably
we gotta splice it in.
It's probably
Pedro, splice it in.
No, don't do that. But
that's really funny.
And I remember saying like I remember with that saying like, oh, they should, you know, go deep on like an online experience, which they did.
Yeah,
they did, because that was like an obvious way forward for that. But
I did not own a PS3 until PS4 had firmly been out.
Oh, okay.
I got it very much secondhand just because I wanted to play Last of Us.
Yeah.
And like some of the other like Uncharted games. They had
big games.
I think they had the MGS Legacy Collection at that
point.
Yeah,
that so the PS3 I didn't own until 2012 when we actually bought it for me as a gift. We and one other person, I should say, bought it for me as a gift, and I was like, oh fuck.
That's a nice gift. What
that meant was that I could download digital versions of all the old games.
Yeah.
Like, so I was like, oh,
that is probably where I spent a lot of my money.
$10 version of Symphony of the Night, $10 version of Metal Gear Solid,
Jumping Flash,
Metal Gear,
fucking Chrono Cross,
like Tekken 1 and 2.
Crash 2.
I have all these fucking games on my PS3, and the convenience. There's something about the PS3. It's a really nice system. Like,
it is.
The UI is a full 1080p.
The UI is very nice.
It's clean. It
plays Blu-rays.
There's not a lot of nonsense with the like PS5 UI. Not to mention the PS3. Yeah, I meant to say PS3. The PS3 is customizable in ways that people probably don't understand. Like, I made a Metal Gear Solid theme that changes backgrounds, has unique icons and everything that I could just build with Photoshop on my computer. Put it together, format it properly, and install it as a theme on my own PS3. You cannot do that on PS5.
Right.
You absolutely can't do that on PS5. But you used to be able to install Linux on the thing.
I also liked that they synchronized the UI experience with PSP.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Which was cool.
The PSP actually showed you the cross menu bar first, and I think there was a device they had that actually had the cross menu bar before either the PlayStation systems did, actually. But it's probably like a phone or something. It's like some media device.
Yeah, it could be.
But then on top of that, another thing people don't talk about very much is the PS3 accepts a lot of controllers. It will accept a lot of like direct input PC controllers, just
interesting,
kind of without a hitch. Yeah, that's why my arcade the stick mod in my arcade stick isn't a PS3 mod. It's just a direct input mod.
That's funny.
So it works on PlayStation 3. I don't have to do anything.
Truly just a PC.
Yeah, it's like, it was really leaning into that computer entertainment system that they call all the PlayStation
Xbox
systems.
Has been chasing that dream for so long.
Yeah, they had been chasing it in a different way. Like, the PlayStation was literally meant for you to have your hands on it. The original ones shipped with a bunch of memory card ports.
Yeah, and they also
had the USB
remote.
ports.
They had the remote controller.
Yeah, the Blu-ray remote, the Blu-ray DVD remote, whatever. There were just a lot of things that PS3 could do, and it got bogged down a little bit by being kind of difficult to develop for. With the CPU.
Cores.
Yeah, the 7-core CPU. And Metal Gear Solid 4 used everything that the PS3 could do. That's why it's not gotten a fucking port yet, though emulators are starting to make that happen. And like the 360 was more just like raw video game box where you could buy some movies on it.
Yeah.
and using an HD DVD player, which was the failed format. But the PS3, the PS Triple had Blu-ray, DVD, CD, streaming video. That it's like Netflix on that PS3 still works. I use it. It's better than the one on my TV.
We played Peace Walker a couple months ago.
Peace Walker. You can still play games online on it. Right now, you can still buy games.
The only console
digitally
from that generation that still has online.
Still has online and a store that you can buy from. Well, the 360 you can play games online if the game's still enabled. You just can't buy the games.
Just individual. Yeah, okay, that's the storefront.
And you can buy them on the Xbox One, but you can't buy them through the 360. You know how it goes. But yeah, the PS3 still the controller. Of course, I actually don't think the PlayStation 1, 2, 3 controller is very comfortable for me because I have these long fucking fingers.
Yeah.
But the PS3 still had the pressure sensitive buttons.
Oh, did it?
That meant the Metal Gear Solid collection releasing on that retained the controls of the PS2 versions of the games.
Legacy Collection has
Legacy Collection on PS3 has the pressure sensitive
sensitive controls.
On the on the 360, you had to like click the left stick in to put your gun down, which is how you have to do it in on all the new consoles now because they got rid of that functionality on PS4 and PS5. Again, I think because the same company that sued Nintendo for the pressure sensitive L&R button,
they got spooked.
Oh yeah, did the same shit about those, and I guess not a lot of developers were using them enough to justify putting that extra thing to break in the controllers. But the PS3 is a little bit ugly to return to nowadays, but those games, if they got just a slight consistent
like that
frame rates and resolution, then it's the same shit that we have now.
It's
basically
the beginning of modern gaming.
Yeah,
like GTA 5, Skyrim.
Yeah, GTA 5 is still around. Like
the games made for PS3 are the games that are still around.
Like Skyrim on PS3 is dog shit, but
that's what it came out on.
It also came out on that. So what would you say? Just try to keep it to one favorite game on the PS3. Mine is very easy. So,
I mean, mine's definitely got to be Uncharted 2.
Interesting. Okay.
It's got to be Uncharted 2. Have you played any Uncharted games?
I tried Uncharted 2 and I kind of bounced off of it. Sorry.
It's okay. You should try 4.
Maybe one. Yeah, it's on PC. So
yeah, and it's getting cheap as shit these days.
Yeah,
I think 4 encapsulates all of the ideas of what they always wanted Uncharted to be.
Yeah,
and they do it in the best way.
The best way they could.
It's just that 2 was the first. Like 1 was clearly like a prototype.
1 is a proof of concept, very clearly. Yeah.
1 is not
playing that.
Fun.
Yeah, I've seen the entirety of 1. Like we were like house sitting for one of my friends' friends.
Yeah, 2 has the framework fleshed out, and it has a really good story. I think the story in 2 is probably my favorite.
I might need to give it a try
as
again.
A game, I think 4 is the best overall game.
I think if I played the Legacy Collection version of 2, I think I might have a better time. I think just something about when I played it on PS3, I was just I kind of fell
where
off
where your mindset is at these days and how you approach games. I think you'd appreciate 2 a lot more.
Okay,
it's like less than 10 hours.
Yeah, I know it's quick. I know it's short, and I could probably get a copy on PS3 for
you can borrow my
cents.
copy.
I don't need to do that right now. I've got so many fucking games right now.
When you're ready.
When I'm ready for it. My favorite.
I have the collection version.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have a PS4 though.
Isn't it PS3?
No, the collection version I'm talking about came out on PS4 to it improved 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I think that's I have that digitally. That's how I originally played it. But I have the red box PS3 collection.
Oh yeah, that's what's in my mind. Yeah. So my favorite PS3 game, easy. It's Metal Gear Solid 4.
That was what first came to mind because I think that was the one and only PS3 game I actually beat because I didn't have a PS3. I played that at a friend's house, and I played through it all the way, and I have a lot of memories of that.
Yeah.
I think the fact you already mentioned the fact that it uses all of the pieces of the PS3
hardware.
It
uses everything
in
about
a way
the
that actually like makes
PS3.
sense and doesn't feel like a forced gimmick. Is a very strong, compelling thing.
I think that game is it uses everything. It's the first game. It's one game that I borrowed my friend's PS3 to play it when it came out.
Yeah.
And I played the shit out of it, and I like wanted to show it to everybody. I remember like, hey, let's go to the PS3 and check out Metal Gear Solid 4. Fucking I think the visuals still hold up now. I think the frame rate has issues on the PS3. It's not that bad, but it has issues. If those were cleared out, that game could come out today. I think people would completely accept the way it looks, like 100%.
For sure. I don't think anybody has ever complained about the visuals of that game.
Some things about the art style are a little strange, like
just the fact that it's like quintessential PS3 gray, whatever.
There's that, but like the way they softened some of the sharper features of a lot of the characters, like Solid Snake himself, his nose isn't as sharp, his chin isn't as sharp, this sounds so fucking crazy now that I'm saying it out loud. When you have like the young Snake mask on, his features are softened, so he actually looks younger with that mask than Solid Snake actually ever looked. And I think
like the fucking beginning of the worst chapter of the game when he's wearing the mask. I will say that's literally the reason why when I was first thinking of the question, that's the first reason why I was like, all right, they probably want to say Uncharted
once
2.
you know how to do that chapter, it goes quick, but they should.
But not even just the chapter itself. It's just like, to me, the pacing of the game.
I
think the high points of that game are very high.
Right.
But I think the pacing hurts it as an overall answer for me.
But I think that game is like, if that game was not only on PS3, I think I could probably get rid of the PS3 and be comfortable. I'm not going to do that, but I could be comfortable getting rid of the PS. Like, I got rid of my Xbox 360.
Yeah.
The games that were on that showed up on PC. Once I built a PC, I got them all for like $1.50 each.
Yeah.
And just was like, okay, I really don't need this 360.
Your favorite 360 game,
Sonic 06, which is on PS3, but
yeah, the worst version.
Yeah, but we're not going to talk about that shit. Oh, I could play Sonic P06.
Yeah, you got to play the better version. Fans fixed it. The original vision of Sonic 06.
The realest, quickest thing, I'm just going to interject here. If you say you play one of these fan like remade versions and you say you played the game, like the Zelda CDI game's got the same treatment, you didn't play the fucking game. You don't fucking understand why. I thought it was fun. No, bitch, you didn't think it was fun. You thought this other thing was fun. You didn't think the game was fun. The game's dog shit. You didn't actually play it though. So, sorry, that's really gatekeepy of me, but I think it's okay this time. PS4, we're going to keep it short. PS4,
I bought a PS4 Pro. That was my first version of a PS4. Yeah. And I bought it for Final Fantasy 15.
Okay, that's completely fair.
I was going to buy it for either the first Final Fantasy game that came out or Kingdom Hearts 3, whichever came first. And it was Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, which is funny as shit. Final Fantasy 15 is built on pieces that kind of inform what's coming out in Kingdom Hearts 4.
Yep.
PS4 was the generation. I was dealing with that fucking website that I was talking about.
Spawn first.
Yeah, and so I was talking about the new generation. Don't look it up. I was interacting with the generations of I was interacting with talking about the new generation of hardware and trying to find places I could try it out and things like that, which I did. And I had decided that I actually wasn't going to fuck with this generation of hardware because we were at the point where all the games were kind of on everything and they were kind of getting to be the same. I could see the jump from PS4 from PS3, like the improvement, but it's like I was at an age where I was 23. I was like, I didn't really care the same way. And even then, Xbox One, I think the jump from Xbox 360 to Xbox One actually had more to offer me personally because the backward compatibility, because of the backward compatibility, and like Killer Instinct. I think the Xbox One had more new games that I was interested in trying out than the PS4 did at that time.
Sure.
But they had both become kind of like generic video game boxes. Yeah. And I decided that generation that when I had the money for it, I'd build a PC, which I did. And building a PC meant I got to play just a lot of those games without a hitch. Sometimes literally. Like I could just play better versions on this computer that I have. And we were starting to get things like I bought a 360 to play Street Fighter 4, but I didn't need to buy a console to play Street Fighter 5 because crossplay was becoming a thing. Like it came out exclusively, Street Fighter 5 exclusively console-wise came out on PS4, but it also came out on PC. I could use the stick I could use all the controllers I already had. It just made more sense for me to skip it. But I think the PS4 being securing that generic game box thing for Sony was really important because on one hand they kind of stopped having to do anything.
Yeah, they kind of rebuilt their foundation to focus on software.
Yeah.
They also started killing off the Vita.
Vita, like isn't even really much to talk about. We skipped the handhelds, but that's not really important right now.
I think the PSP was a really good handheld console.
I think
there are a lot of cool ideas, and it holds its own separately from the DS.
Yeah,
as just a completely different thing that it was trying to do. The Vita is a really fantastic piece of hardware. They got zero software support.
Yeah,
really sad.
The Vita has the best D-pad I've ever felt. It's got 2 analog sticks. The screen's nice.
Bangs. The Gen 1 had the OLED screen. Yeah. Like, crazy device.
I think both of those handhelds have annoying fucking problems. The Vita not having any fucking games, and the PSP is an annoying system in general to me. I think the UMDs were stupid. I think the memory cards were stupid. I think the
memory cards were definitely
memory cards were still on Vita and PSP. I think the
proprietary memory cards is awful.
I think the material that the fucking console was made of was not very good. I like the plastic on the outside.
If the rumors are true,
then we might be seeing another one.
Yeah, because of the Portal.
Oh yeah.
The Portal was definitely their proving ground.
They're being
for
like,
future.
Is this something that we can do?
Handheld. I fucking knew it, dude.
Yeah,
the Portal seems like a good device. The fact that it now enables. Wait me to get to the PS5.
We'll talk about that a little bit in a little bit, but like in general, I think Sony's handhelds they're not for me. I had a PSP. I got the little crack on the bottom very quickly. I think there's a screw on the bottom of the PSP. They fixed it with later hardware where they made a little gap so the crack couldn't form, but the plastic would crack eventually just because of the way the screw was in there. Eventually, it would the tension would cause it to crack.
PSP similar to PS3 and PS4. I got very late.
Oh yeah.
PSP I think I got actually during the PS4 era.
Oh, interesting. PSP I got at launch.
Yeah, I didn't get any of that shit at launch.
Yeah, PSP I got day one because I was like, this is crazy. I gotta have
Nintendo
one of these.
shit is the only shit I had gotten at launch. Yeah. Actually, still to date, PS5 I didn't get at launch either.
Yeah, I think the only Nintendo thing I didn't get at launch after I started getting them at launch was the Wii U. And that was like 2 weeks later.
I got Wii U at launch.
Yeah, I got the PSP. Okay, no, well, I guess we're talking about it now. I got the PSP. I thought I liked it. I got what's the fucking game called? I got Twisted Metal Head On. Game was annoying as shit. I actually wanted Darkstalkers, but they didn't have it.
Birth by Sleep was good. Really good use of PSP.
Yeah,
fun multiplayer co-op.
Yeah, that's
you could do.
And there was like the Monster Hunter games and everything.
Monster Hunter games were good,
but the Monster Hunter
games were fun.
They all had a fucking problem. No, they didn't have 2 sticks, so you had to learn to fucking claw that shit to use it. Because a lot of those games would use the D-pad as a camera, or in the case of Peace Walker, it used the face buttons as the fucking camera, and you had to learn to use the auto aim system. It's just like some of those games were good, but they were just not.
DS
they shouldn't
and
have been
3DS both kind of had that problem though, but the games were designed around it a little bit better because they had the touchpad.
That's what I was going to say. The DS and the 3DS had a situation where I had realized this when I was like 15, where I think the handheld nature was better suited for those games that were on the DS. Like they were small, they were clearly smaller, they were simpler, like not simpler in gameplay necessarily, but simpler, like there were still a lot of 2D games. They weren't trying to ape console games, and I think
Metal Gear Solid 3D.
That's different. I didn't even buy that, but I did get the theme.
I do have it.
You have it in the case, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the DS was perfect at the time because trying to do a handheld console was just not. It wasn't time for that yet. The PSP using discs is one of the worst ideas for longevity I've ever seen. It sucks. The discs are bad. They're bad.
But I have to wonder if it was the only way they could provide games at that fidelity.
And personally, I think if that were the case, they just should not have bothered. They should have provided a more stable like memory card format, not their own proprietary one. They should have just used SD cards that were around at the time.
I would agree with that. It's just so not in their brand though.
but they did provide like digital downloads of the games, and that's just a better way to get those games on a handheld.
That's how I always did it.
And but then that kind of left everything, despite not having an SD card slot. The PSP was so easily moddable that everyone just pirated shit, and that kind of fucked it up anyway. Like the value of a PSP is to mod it nowadays. It's not necessarily to
that's exactly
like
what
buy
I did.
those fucking discs, because those UMDs, I'm telling you.
No, I know.
Seeing those UMDs now, they're all like broken. They're multiple pieces. They don't work, like scratched up and shit. If you took care of them, fantastic. But if like, good luck buying used ones. Those things are fucked. Those things are fucked up.
Why are they so? Didn't they have the little plastic case to protect it?
The case fucking breaks. The little window, the little glass window not glass, the little plastic window just kind of breaks in. It's like it's not held by hooks or anything. There's no clips or anything. It's just sitting there. It sucks. It's trash. Like I can't say that enough. The PSP like the hardware, the actual like bits and pieces that you hold and touch are trash, and that's probably why I didn't want to talk about the handhelds, because I didn't want to be mean about it. The Vita, great hardware. Used cards like the DS and the Switch do and everything like that now. It's
completely fucking.
But there's like unless you love visual novels, there isn't really much to play.
All of them are fucking on Steam or something else.
On Steam, on fucking Switch.
Yeah.
And the Switch ends up being a nicer way to play some of those games because there's no back touchpad. Because that back touchpad gets in the way. Like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 on the Vita maps some control to that, and it's very hard to touch that system without touching the back.
I will say, the first Uncharted game I played.
Golden Abyss.
That's
funny as shit.
Which people clowned me for, but I thought it was pretty good because it used all the pieces.
It did use the features, yeah. It did.
I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah,
that was pretty good.
So,
anyway, going back to PS4.
PS4, it's a simple machine. We're using hard drive. Machine.
It's almost like the. How do I say this? I don't want to say the worst PlayStation console in terms of Sony's identity.
Yeah, it's like the least.
It's the least Sony.
It has the least personality.
Yeah, the least personality.
But that's to its benefit because it got like the most. It got tons of games.
Yeah.
You like I said, it was just a generic game box. It was like, what system are you on? I'm on PS4. Okay, I'll just buy one.
And frankly, it's still relevant because almost every PS5 game that comes out is also still on PS4.
So many games are still coming out on PS4, like classic collections, new games.
God of War Ragnarok.
Both God of War games are on PS4. Original one came out. Last of Us 2 was a PS4 game in 2020. Still on there. Still works. They're fine.
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Final Fantasy VII Remake. Not Rebirth, but Remake was on PS4. Like the PS4, despite its hardware deficiencies, is still quite a capable machine. And I think a lot of games now don't need much more than what the PS4 can offer to work.
Yeah.
Like they might not be working the best that it could, but to work well enough for people to enjoy it. Like people are still playing Call of Duty on it, like the new Call of Duty. People are still playing Fortnite, all that kind of stuff on there too.
Right.
And that's a lot more. So there's been a lot of sirens today.
Idiots.
Jesus Christ. I think the PS4's benefits, like if for it being a whatever system, like hardware wise, it just opened the door for so many games that are at like high enough fidelity. You know what I mean? They look better than PS4, and they're good enough for people now.
Yeah, I mean, both you and I agree that PS3 even was at that point.
Yeah, it was definitely approaching that point. Some of the games that came out on PS4 were just PS3 games with that shit ironed out.
Yeah.
So the
PS4 was the first Sony console I owned that I personally owned ever.
Oh, interesting.
I had PS4 before I bought PS3, before I bought PSP, before I bought PS Vita, and before that is my brother's shit. My brothers had the PS3 originally. My brothers had the PS2 and the PS1, and they traded in the fucking Super Nintendo and Genesis.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So see, I had a PS2 and I had
all the Nintendo shit. So. I had games. My first PlayStation game was Rayman.
Yeah.
I got that Christmas 1995.
Yeah. You got games for the machine, but it wasn't.
Yeah,
I got
exactly. Yeah. I had games all throughout all the different console life cycles.
So we're at the point where the consoles are a little bit less special. But what was your favorite game on the PS4?
So you have to think about it. Should I pick one that's not on PS5?
You can pick whatever you want. Just pick one though. Let's keep it to one.
I would say I would probably say Last of Us 2.
Okay.
I was struggling between Last of Us 2 and God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Both games are very, very good.
Okay.
I think both have really good gameplay, really impressive like storytelling, narrative, voice acting, and motion capture.
Yeah.
I think what puts Last of Us 2 over the top for me is it really felt even more like an evolution of the first game from a gameplay perspective.
Yeah.
Like the gameplay in Last of Us 2 is like it wasn't quite as dramatic as Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2, but it's approaching it.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas God of War 1 and God of War 2 was more or less the same game, but God of War 2 ironed out some of the things that got a little bit repetitive or annoying about God of War 1. But they almost feels like more of an extension of the same game.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Like it's probably just a better version of the first game.
Right.
But Last of Us 2, I think, makes enough improvements to the first Last of Us that it actually, like, I would say probably pushes the capabilities of, like, combining good gameplay with a good story and a good narrative.
Okay.
To me, it's like the quintessential, like, modern PlayStation title.
Yeah. Okay. That definitely works.
What would you say?
So I know I said one game, but I actually am going to cheat. My favorite game would be basically every retro collection that came out on
That's
the thing.
really funny.
Mainly because
I'm not too surprised by that.
You can get them all digitally. They don't take a lot of space on a hard drive. And
why are you whispering?
I don't know. They don't take a lot of space. That you can get them all digitally, and oftentimes they're very cheap. So you ended up getting a lot of games, a lot of like a great version of a lot of games for very little money. I don't think anything that came out on the PS4 specifically, like I don't really care for Souls games, so Bloodborne is not in there for me. I think a lot of those games just came out on PC, and that's where I played them. So it's hard for me to think of what games specific. And that funny enough, that's the generation like I was showing up in the credits of games, but funny. I was just like, that's the generation I was indifferent to owning those consoles, and I just played the games on PC.
Yeah.
So now we get to
the current PS5. Day.
We get to PlayStation fucking 5.
I want to say first off, the best thing about PS5 is two things. One is it really feels like they've gone back to building on top of what they already had before and really pushing innovation and hardware and capabilities. The controller fucking bangs. The DualSense is so good.
The controller is much better. It's a much better controller than
people complain about stick drift. I don't really get it personally. Yeah. I don't really see it. Every time that I've had stick drift, it's because of something I did, or it's like fucking gunk got in the shit.
Like hair got into it. Yeah.
I think it's a really good controller. I think it actually feels like an evolution on controller technology with the haptic triggers and the fucking sensitivity of the rumble and all that, and combined with the speaker. Like Astrobot is a really
the speaker is actually good. It's not like the Wii speaker. It's a very good speaker. Like you might not realize some of the sounds are coming out of the speaker.
And not just that,
turn down the TV and
I was realizing here with my new soundbar, I tested the 3D audio thing, how it like receives the acoustics around you through the controller to calibrate. So it's impressive that they're once again kind of going back to saying, okay, we've got our foundation reestablished. Let's see what we can do and push the envelope on just immersion and the experience, which is cool and it's good. And I'm glad that they're doing that. And the Portal, I think they're at fucking investment in OnLive in 2009. It's
something crazy. Yeah.
Has finally coming to fruition.
Yeah. It's starting to.
Remote play has been around for several years, and I would say remote play has been good for a few years now at least.
Yeah, it's been decent for like I've played games through remote play through cloud and remote play.
I beat the fucking Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind DLC, which is very fucking hard and very precise, much more so than any other Kingdom Hearts thing in any franchise. People that are like, oh, Sephiroth was so hard. No. If you haven't played the Remind DLC, you don't don't say shit. I played it in fucking Florida, sourcing from my PlayStation 4, here. My PS4 here.
PS4 here.
It was before I even had PS5, and I was using remote play through it, and it worked. I mean, it definitely hiccuped here and there, but it was more than playable enough to like scream through all these bosses.
Yeah.
So like it was definitely getting there. Yeah. And then they put that client on like Mac and PC and phone, and they've continued to just evolve. They just want like it's clearly been in a data collection mode and iterating on it.
Yeah.
And the portal was them basically committing to saying like, okay, it's good enough now for us to turn
Sell
this into
a product
device.
that's
Yeah. People were like, what the fuck is this? This is a waste. That's just connected to their fucking PS5 when you've already got a remote play. You've got it on Steam Deck with Chiaki, and all this other shit. And people didn't get it. But having played it in South Carolina on my brother's, I was like, this is actually like damn near native.
Oh, you tried this.
Yeah, my brother got one for his daughter.
Oh, okay.
And they were playing Astrobot whenever my sister's wedding. And I was really fucking impressed on like shitty beach rental Wi-Fi.
It was working fine.
It like they're doing some black magic type shit, which is crazy because I thought Xbox was going to be the ones to do that with Game Pass.
Yeah, and
my experience is that remote play is better.
My understanding is that at least right now, I've used Game Pass to stream game. Like I played through the entirety of Banjo-Kazooie, the entirety of Banjo-Tooie, and the entirety of Perfect Dark, but I know that game like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
I played through the entirety of those games on streaming via a web browser.
Right.
Before, or like in the very recent past. And it's I think streaming is at a place, if you have the situation for it, where it is good enough for a lot of different kinds of games. Maybe not like Twitch multiplayer games, or
not COD.
You're not going to play a fighting game with it. It's not going to be, you're not going to get the reactions you need. But a lot of games are very acceptable via streaming. And I think leaning into that, just like inching towards it is exactly what these companies should have been should be doing. They shouldn't have. There's no big dive into that, because once you try to take that big dive, you get Kingdom Hearts and fucking Switch, and that was not good. But
I can't talk about that.
I can't believe that happened.
It's crazy.
Like I love this. I love
happened.
Switch. I love Switch a lot, but Jesus Christ, some of those cloud games. Come on, dude. I know it's not the same thing as streaming
some of the worst shit
from your local shit to the Switch, but come on now.
But yeah, having the technology advancements in the DualSense in a
you have
portable
the
device with remote play just like working as flawlessly as it could be. You got firmware updates coming.
Right.
They just got the beta patch where now you don't even need a PS5. You can connect to Sony's own
Plus
servers
and stream them from cloud.
And so, I'm excited to see where they take that. If they actually do take it to another handheld and they somehow make it, I don't even know what they could do at this point, because I think what they have is all they need.
Yeah,
they're actually at a risk of doing the opposite of what Nintendo's done, of diverging their fucking lines.
Splitting. That's what I'm afraid of, with everyone kind of talking about them getting new handhelds. I'm like, if you need to don't miss what made Switch and Steam Deck by extension successful, which was make it so exactly the same games are being played and made on the one platform, and you can just play it in different form factors. Because if you have a PlayStation handheld, it's not going to be able to match PS5. Impossible. Can't do it. What are the games going to be? Are they going to be streaming? Like, is everything just going to be streaming? But at that point, you have a Portal that already exists.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I feel like the Portal is good enough. For their handheld line.
Exactly. Like, you can't, if you make games for this one handheld, or this handheld plays the games locally, like, you're gonna have to limit what you can play on. Like, what's
the only other thing they would do as the next step is sort of take the Steam Deck approach and just provide the same games, but like at a lower fidelity.
Yeah.
Right. But right now they have sort of like the PS5 Pro going in the incrementally upward direction. Yeah. They could also go incrementally downward.
And it's like, but should they do that? Because having multiple SKUs to test for is a pain in the actual ass.
Yeah. Well, so the way that I see it is like, if they keep doing these incremental like half generation updates, then their handheld can always just be one behind. So it's already almost like tested for. If that makes sense.
That's there too.
Like PS4 is still around. They could probably achieve PS4 quality in a handheld at this point. I think that's what they're going for.
Yeah, the prediction is that all of these new handhelds coming up, like Steam Deck already does in a lot of ways, it'll just kind of blow past. It won't be quite like current console, but it'll still blow past PS4 because the technology will be they'll be using more modern techniques and tech in general to power those games.
And so that's the thing, right? If they can get Last of Us 2, God of War Ragnarok, like all this shit playable is still on PS4.
Yeah.
Why not just also make that natively available on a handheld?
On a handheld. Just Like
it's there for the taking. Like like capitalize on the fact that generations are taking longer to develop now.
Yeah.
And just make it available on more things at different price points.
I would need to see how they would handle it, because if they're going with the way that these PC handhelds are going, and they're outside of the Steam Deck, they're like approaching $1,000.
Well, I mean,
it's just like
to me, it's. I don't think they would do that.
That's what I'm saying.
I think they would go more the Switch competitor route.
Right, but then what would they? I need to see what they would do. I think of it
almost like other Sony products, like TVs, right?
Yeah,
TVs. They have a whole line of TVs of varying degrees of quality and fidelity, right?
Sure.
I'm almost thinking of that in this console version. It's like you can either get the PS5 Pro for $800. And get like max frame rate, max resolution, play it on your max spec TV.
Yeah.
Or you can play it a lower version, smaller screen on a handheld, portable, different experience, different consumer, right? Mm-hmm. It just, to me, it's a more stark differentiation in the model lines compared to something like a TV.
I would need to, like, I'm just, like, and would they make it so you could use the handheld on the TV? Like,
I don't think they would do that. Because to me, at that point, it's a different consumer.
You're right, but like
the people that are using the PS Portal are different from the people that are like playing the PS5 on the TV to a degree.
It's like, I want to see what
like I saw that in action. I just want to see
what they would do.
I saw that in action when my brother was like, I want to play the PS5 on my TV at home when I'm like in the mood and settled in my space, right? But his daughter didn't give a shit. She was fucking playing Astrobot. Maybe she gets a hiccup, but like she's playing the game. She's having fun. She's being able to enjoy the game. It's like it's two different like personas of gamer.
Of the same, It'll be interesting to see what they do, but on PS5 though, PS5, like you were saying, it's like an iteration from the PS4. Almost all the PS4 games are carrying over to it. Some of them get improvements.
Yep.
And PS5, despite being one of the ugliest fucking consoles I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's my opinion.
It's fucking hidden in my TV console.
Yeah, it's hard to sit down vertically. It's really hard to have horizontally because you need to stand with it. It's got a lot of nice stuff for the feel of the games when it comes to the controller. But we are hitting that like diminishing returns point with
for sure.
Fidelity and graphics and everything like that. And they're gonna have to start doing new things with games to generate interest, because this console has like the least exclusives of any of PlayStation consoles. Yeah. It's like maybe 20.
I mean, I would say this year was the first year we even started getting exclusives.
Yeah, like for real. And those exclusives ended up being shit like Stellar Blade.
Yeah.
And even then, that's going to come out on PC and stuff like that, too.
Right.
So,
and that's
like
another interesting part of their strategy.
Yeah.
Which is also why I think they're going to go this route with the handheld, because I think now for them, like making money and pushing innovation and getting PS2-like results is not going to be achievable on one box. They have to have different boxes and different like channels,
different of points of access.
Making their games available, and to them that's going to be a combination of different PS5 models, handhelds, Steam Deck, right? Like all of these different ways that people play. They want their game to be available
on all of that. Yeah, I mean that's what Microsoft is trying to do too.
Right.
So we'll see what kind of success that brings. I think one of the
it's just ironic because I think what makes Sony better positioned to actually achieve that is the fact that their entire brand is built on innovation. If you have the thing, if you have the thing that's on the strongest, most powerful thing to start with, you probably also have a good idea of how to pare that down. Yeah, it's almost like a counterintuitive thing in my mind to a degree. It's like, to me, like an indie building something on itch.io is going to have a lot harder time porting that to all these other devices because they're one person, they've built for a PC, now they have to figure out how all these other architectures work.
Right.
If you have the best architecture, then you probably also have avenues of optimizing it down, right? Especially if you start implementing your own first-party SKUs that do that natively.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's a weird, because again, Microsoft did that shit. The Xbox Series X is more powerful than the PS5, like base PS5 by the tiniest bit. And everyone complained about the Series S. Like every developer is like,
it's a branding issue.
But it's not a branding issue. It's a, why the fuck do we have to deal with this thing? Like the games have to be.
That's a branding issue.
How's that a branding issue?
Like they're not marketing themselves correctly. Like the percent they need to control the conversation.
What?
The
What do you
companies.
The developers?
Yeah.
What? Not wanting to make a fucking Series S version? What do you mean?
I thought you meant like the gamers are like
No, I'm not talking about the
shit.
gamers. The gamers are probably the gamers. The people that have Series S's are probably happy with it. It's
Yeah.
the game developers that are like,
I see.
they're like, we don't really want to deal with this Xbox shit because we have to deal with we have to deal with like PC, Xbox, PC, Xbox,
Yeah.
and Xbox and streaming and a lot of them just say fuck it. It's not really worth it because people aren't really playing with Xbox.
See, I don't really know what's going on with Xbox because it seems like indie devs like can't even really properly engage with Microsoft anymore. All these people complaining about their partnerships.
Even then, like
just fizzling.
Like the Capcom fighting game collection just weren't coming out on Xboxes.
I mean, we saw
either.
all those reports of like I can't remember the game, but he's like, we're just not going to come out on Xbox, and here's why: is because working with Microsoft was so shitty. Like getting the certifications
the way it is
and
right
all
now.
that.
Yeah, it's a weird situation, and I think I think Sony still has the benefit of being generic game box when it comes to the PS5.
I still think what we're seeing is the results of Sony planning like 10 years out. Like I think they've had a 5 to 10 year roadmap of exactly how they're going to achieve this sort of multi-platform, multi-SKU strategy.
Yeah.
And it almost started with OnLive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm like I said, I'm just like the way their leadership seems to be. Everything with the PlayStation is like nowadays, and I don't like saying it this way, seems to be like Geron, not for you, man. Like
it's
a bunch of stuff that's just like kind of all right to me.
Yeah. You mean from the games or
from the games, from the hardware is good and everything, but there's literally nothing special about it that makes me think I need a PS5.
Right. From a gameplay perspective,
there's like I see more benefit in spending the money to deal with this PC that I have than, and not saying this is in everybody's situation.
I mean that's part of their strategy though. Is like they've been committing to PC releases. And like you see how fucking disastrous that shit was for the first like 10 first party games.
Yeah.
And it's only gotten better because like they know that this is
they know that they're going to have to do that.
Yeah.
But so I think something about that also makes it so that I notice what about the games are kind of like, not all of them. This is by no means all of them. What about those games are like kind of like whatever to me at this
generic
point. Damn, I didn't mean for this to be so fucking negative because the PS5 has a lot of cool shit too. Like Astrobot came out. I don't know. There's whenever I see the games that are being developed by like Sony's first party studios nowadays, the games that are coming out on the thing, I just get a little like, it feels like I'm getting tired. It feels like they're talking a bunch of nothing into my ear. I'm like, what am I? Couldn't I just watch this? Couldn't I just like just make it an HBO series? I'll just watch it there.
I mean, they're doing that too.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying though? So
that's why they're doing this, because there are people
good for them to that,
think the way that you think. They're just like, I don't really want to engage with this. Like, I don't feel the need to spend my time on that. You know, like that's a big function of it.
I just wish that it were. I know what this is going to sound like. The PS1, the PS2, and in some ways the PS3 all felt like they were informed by people that enjoyed video games. The PS4 felt like it was like the third party box, which is great, which is fine. And the PS5 really feels like that to me. It feels like it's just a vehicle. Like they're all vehicles to make money, duh. But it feels like there's nothing. The same kind of like spirit of putting out video games and making video games for the sake of them being games isn't quite there, which
definitely feels harsh to me. Because like you look at all the top PS5 / some that are PS4 games.
Sure.
They're almost entirely all by different studios because at this point it takes 10 years to make a video game.
Sure.
I feel like at least half of them are made by people that like video games.
Are you talking about like from third-party developers or from their first parties?
I would mix of both.
Because third parties, great, but I don't need a PlayStation for that shit.
No, I would agree. You don't. I mean, you don't need a PlayStation for any of them at this point. They're all coming out on Steam too.
Right. But Gran Turismo 7, I need a PlayStation 4.
That's true.
But I can also get a PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
Like PS4 for that. And it just seems like harsh.
Why is that bad though?
Why is that? It's not bad. It's not bad in the scheme of it. It's just like
do you feel like it cheapens the brand?
It makes certain things about it just far less exciting. I don't feel like I'm stepping forward when I think of PS5. I feel like I'm stepping to the side.
Stepping broad.
And I that's, like I said, that's fine. Like when I was talking about Switch before, I was like, the game consoles can kind of become game appliances now. They're just things that you get that happen to play. Like they're more like DVD players rather than exciting steps forward in the technology of whatever they are. But I think this particular generation is just exceedingly boring to me from Microsoft, from Sony. Switch is in a different. I haven't really been talking about Nintendo too much when it comes to the last couple of generations because they've been doing their own thing, so I don't really count it in the same way. But the just like nothing there that makes me think I gotta have this shit. You know what I mean? Whereas on PS4, like the PS4 generation, at least I had I gotta build a PC for some of this shit. Now I'm just like,
for me, the FF7 trilogy is that.
Okay, that's fair.
So part of it is nostalgia driven. Part of it is because I just really like the way those games reinvent those ideas.
Yeah.
It recaptured my sort of like childlike wonder that I remember having with the original Final Fantasy VII, which is really enjoyable for me. That was when we asked the question of what's your favorite PS5 game, and I say that in air quotes because so many of them are PS4 games as well. And if I think of specifically just the PS5 games. The ones I've played, Spider-Man 2 being one of them. I don't think that's on PS4, is it?
It's not on PS4. Yeah.
Returnal, Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart. It's funny the metaphors on this list. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth would be my definite answer of my favorite PS5 game. I had a spiritual experience with that game. I think it's really, really good.
Okay.
I think it does everything that a JRPG is supposed to do. I think you can beat the game in a very reasonable amount of time if you just want to see the story. I think it offers a variety of side content that is pretty unseen in a lot of games, but apparently, the Like a Dragon's series probably competes with it in that way. Sure. But I've never really touched those games.
Yeah, those are a bit different about it, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
None of them are really like that, especially because I think, but it's like it's a third party game, but that's also kind of what PlayStation is built on anyway. Yeah,
like PS1, all the best PS1 games.
A lot of the best PS1 games were
Symphony
third party.
of the Night, Metal Gear Solid, Konami, right? Yeah, 7 Square Enix.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything necessarily bad about that. Uncharted 4 is kind of a PS4, PS5 game. It's got an update. It's more of a PS4 game.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2 being Insomniac, but really just kind of an evolution of Spider-Man 1. I don't think Spider-Man 2 did enough differently. So I kind of get sort of like the sameness.
So Spider-Man 2, this is a conversation for a different thing. Spider-Man 2, the more I played it, the more it got on my nerves.
How much did you play of it?
I haven't finished it. I don't remember. I don't know exactly how far. My friend got it.
Oh, okay.
And she didn't want to play it. So I was like, okay, fuck you. I'll play this shit. Let me play this for a little while. I'll play this for a bit. I played it multiple times. But I was just like, I don't know. Something about that game just got on my nerves. It's hard. I'm not going to really try to articulate it right now, but I don't know. There's just something about these fucking things that's
sorry to hear that.
Got me feeling certain ways.
I feel like Baldur's Gate 3 is another one that's like up there in terms of like the spirit.
Sure, but that's a PC game.
Here's also probably my pick that competes with FF7 Rebirth would be Death Stranding.
Okay.
Death Stranding, I had one of those like metaphysical, like, oh shit, this is like transcending what a game is.
Yeah. So
and what
you
it has
count
to
that as
say
a
about
PS5
it.
game in this particular.
I'm counting it as a PS5
Okay.
game. It was on PS4.
It originally came out on PS4.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe not a PS5 game, but Death Stranding 2, I'm excited to see.
Yeah, I want to see
because
what's
it's
up
like
with that.
I have faith in Kojima
Yeah.
and his team.
The people around him.
Yeah.
So I think if I had to pick a favorite PS5 game, it'd be Street Fighter 6 pretty easily. Obviously that's a third-party game, and I didn't play it on PS5. I played it on PC. But game's fun, and it happens to be on PS5.
Yeah.
So, but again, it's another one of those games where do I need a PS5 to play it? No, it's on PS4.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do going forward. Like if you're in the market for a video game system and you want the like high fidelity console, PS5, go for it. He's got the PS5 or PS4 library. It's got the PS5 library. It's got digital versions of PS2, PS1 games now. It's got streaming versions of PS3 games. There's a lot of stuff to play on it, but I don't think you should go to play PS5 for PlayStation. You should just go to it for video games, which is a good thing.
Which
it's a good thing for Sony's for their branding purposes. You should do that. For me personally, I like when the machine is video games and whatever and itself. If you know what I mean, has its own personality,
like losing its identity.
Like I want to see those games that represent the machine plus the others, the other things that come in, which Nintendo is still very good at right now.
I mean, that is what Nintendo does.
That's what Nintendo is.
Their thing.
Microsoft is not quite as good as that, but I think they don't get enough credit. They do still have stuff, especially with all the fucking studios they bought recently, which makes me roll my eyes. But that's there.
Yeah.
Like they're still trying to be the first person shooter machine for some reason. They don't need to do that anymore, but they still try to do it.
I will say, in terms of the future of PS5
Mm-hmm.
and Sony in general and PlayStation,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's very positive that Astro Bot was as successful as it was. Like there were comments even just this week from, I forget who it was, like whoever the president of PlayStation is.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, we're really, really happy with the success of Astro Bot.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that maybe they can get some extra juice in there, some extra personality, to your point. That isn't just like, a hallway narrative simulator.
Yeah.
Which is like, to be harsh, kind of what it is now with God of War and Uncharted and Last of Us.
And that's exhausting to me for a bunch of different reasons. Main reason being like the control is completely wrestled from you. In like, you might be pressing forward, you might be moving forward through the games, but you're doing exactly what they want you to do. And the problem that they have with secondary characters just giving you puzzle solutions and shit like that. Just please, please resist the urge to do that.
Yeah.
But I think truly though, for PlayStation itself, I think of course they're gonna have a future, and I think this generation really is. Speaking of bridges, Sam Porter bridges. I think speaking of like bridges,
that is like what you say there, and I know what you like about games. I really think the two games you need to play, or like actually need to play, are Death Stranding and Sekiro.
Oh yeah, Sekiro.
Like you really will enjoy those games a lot for a lot of the reasons why you like games.
Okay. Okay. Well, until I get to finishing those, because I have one of them, I need to get the other one. I think right now, PlayStation is fucking boring. I'm just gonna say it like that. PlayStation is fucking boring, but it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to stay that way. Who knows what's going to happen with the next generation when all the techniques and technology that are being formed now are perfected. You know what I mean? Next generation or maybe current generation. I know we have the PS5 Pro that just came out. Maybe we'll get some enhancements that come with that with new games.
PS5 is going to last us to 2030. Straight up.
Yeah. So like once people start getting used to things, maybe we'll start getting those experiences that don't try to go big, but they do try to go like for a lot of they go for a lot of fun, like new kinds of fun that you can have with a video game with either traditional or untraditional controls, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, That's fair.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
This is a
Well-
long fucking episode. This is our longest one to date.
How long
it's
is
almost 2 hours.
Oh no! It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Well, fuck it. All right.
Do you have a higher fans?
No, we don't have time
we
for
are the
that.
fans. All right.
We are the fans. Hire me.
All right, hit us up. If you like the shit, even though it was long,
Yeah.
give us a like, comment, subscribe. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and YouTube. Give us an email, memoryleakpodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, sorry to cut this off quickly, but we're tired now.
Yep, and the dog enjoyed it.
Deuces.